Hello everyone, this is David with Q's Cage. We're still working on the introduction cage setup and mistake I made. I had reviewed that in part 1. There's my son, by the way. Like I said, this video is never going to be edited. There'll probably be some chaos in the background. We're watching Chicken Little right now. Hope you enjoy it. And that's the way I'd like to keep it. I'd like to keep it very honest and open and honest. So, as we discussed, I had made a mistake. I had planned on using a cage that just wasn't suitable. After visiting the website, the Varanus Molinas website I mentioned, I realized that he was going to need more space. If you look at the first 2 videos that I took of Q, you'll actually see that there was less components in here than there is right now. That's because I watched him the first day cover every inch of this cage. He went up the 2x4 spacer that I needed to, because I totally MacGyvered the glass track, so I needed the 2x4 here. He came up the 2x4, like hugged it, climbed it, and then stuck his tongue out right up here. And I loved it, but it was also like, wow, he's really just going to use every piece of the cage. So I'm going to work from the bottom my way up, and again, if you saw the first video, you know that that I wasn't prepared properly. Shame on me completely. And the one thing that I planned on was using aspen chips for now to get it set up, the other cage ultimately, and I had cypress mulch coming to the house. I had an issue finding it locally. A couple garden shops have it, but it was a bit of a drive, especially because I happen to be off into a difficult spot to get to in and out of. So either way, I used aspen chips and planned on using cypress. When I sent an email to Varanus Molinas to thank him or her for the website and the detail, because it truly saved me, he was very, very nice. Came back and thanked me for the email. He specifically, the substrate was the first thing he mentioned. Now I went back and said, oh no, I got the substrate covered. I always use cypress mulch. And he immediately came back and said, you know what? They love dirt and sand, soil and sand. It was an 80-20% mix. I will tell you this, that he is back there right now. What he does is he digs up all of the aspen, puts it. Grayson, you okay? You're okay. Walk it off, buddy. Walk it off. Hey, I just told him I can't edit anything. You're okay. It's okay. All right, all right. Like I said, we're not editing anything. All right, all right, all right. No, they're not. They're not subscribing to listen to you cry. Come on, buddy. Take it down a notch. He's 2. Sid, can you grab? Thank you, honey. There's my son. He's all right. He tripped, fell. He's more tired than her. Okay, moving right along. He mentioned the soil and sand. Now, I'd always used cypress mulch for my water monitors. Again, I had mentioned in the beginning, felt like I was a confident builder or person who sets things up. Q is in the corner. He's got a spot. He's been there every night since he's with us, which is 4 complete days now. And I know it's only 4 days, but he's already consistent in exactly where he hangs out, what he does. He builds up a huge pile of the aspen. It's probably, I don't know, 5-6 inches deep, and he curls up. There's a heat pad under here. I did that just as an added warmth provider. As you can see, the water's right there, so if it gets chilly, Q's always got a place to warm up. So he loves it right in that corner, and I don't see him until about 2 or 3 hours consistently for the past 4 days. I never see him come out until about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So that's the aspen. I planned on going cypress. After seeing the amount of Q digging and how much he enjoys it, I have to completely agree with and I have a feeling I'll be agreeing a lot, so I apologize. I don't mind not agreeing with people, but on this one, he just loves digging. So I am going to go, when the cypress mulch gets here, I'll use it in the garden, and I am going to go to a 80-20% soil sand mix. And when that happens, I'll obviously do a video for it. Now, if you go back to the other videos, you'll see that there was less items in here. The lattice was just straight down. There was no rock up here. So we're going to work our way up and kind of explain the things. I wanted to have this area here over the water, not only as just an extra playing area, but you know, I've been also putting his food bowls right there. It's a convenient spot. And if it ever falls over, it falls over into the water. Not the end of the world. I changed the water, which is a little complex right now. It's the one thing, I changed the water yesterday, and I realized that it takes a little longer than I prefer. So I'm probably going to raise this lattice, keep everything in the position it's at, but just drill the lattice into the side of the melamine, so then I can just pull and slide the tub out. I prefer a black tub just for aesthetics, but again, that's the thing I had in the house. This driftwood I picked up on the beach 3 years ago, right out back, and I've been using it ever since. So it was baked originally and treated, and then it's been in reptile cages forever. This lattice was cut down and put more on a straight up angle, and I'll tell you, Q just loves going up and down. He goes to this, he gets up on the top, he jumps to the rope, and then he jumps from the rope to the top of that lattice and up to his rock. I've got a couple of live plants in the back. I like the live plants. You know, most of my monitors, the previous monitors I've owned, they're too big for live plants. They just tear everything up. But I've seen and read that this particular species, because they're so semi on all three areas, semi-aquatic, semi-arboreal, and semi-terrestrial, if you do the plants correctly, you can do it correct. You know, you can make it happen and you can keep it. So my plan is to grow them out and keep it. Now, moving upward, and obviously the pool. They are semi-aquatic. I see a lot of videos with people and they're swimming and they just stay underwater for 45 minutes. He does swim, but he doesn't spend a lot of time in the water. I'm thinking it's because it's not heated. So I am gonna buy a small, like 10-gallon heater. I'm gonna put it in, I'm gonna drill it out of the back, put it through, cut the cord so it's not like a huge hole, just a small hole for the cord. And I am going to install a heater. It'll be interesting, to see if he increases his water time, and we'll obviously share that together. I put the green here on the lattice because I felt at the time, before the log was installed, not installed but placed, that the lattice was going to be the most exposed area as he was climbing up to the heating area. And before, if you'll remember the videos, if you saw them, there was no flat rock up there, and we'll talk about that in a second. And the green sure has helped him. He climbs right up. You know, I'm not saying it's because of the green. I'm just telling you that this is working. And I have no reason to change it. So he loves climbing up. The rope, I saw that in a photo. I thought it was a great idea. I saw the black and yellow rope. Actually, earlier I said I bought a piece of melamine. I bought the rope as well. That was it. Everything else is from the house. And the black and yellow rope is just classic when he's climbing on it, and I can't wait for his color to really pop when he starts to shed, and I think it'll be a cool contrast. So going up to the top, earlier, and I'm getting long on the video, I apologize. Earlier, there was no rock up there, and again, varanusmolinas.com was kind enough to reach out and say, hey, love the photos, great job, you know, you're doing what you have to. Who cares what it looks like, as long as it's good for the lizard? And I love that attitude. I completely agree. My wife doesn't agree. She'd rather have it look nice. Well, not at the lizard's expense. But what I'm going to show you here is, I've always done a rock for the monitors, but I figured because of the arboreal species, it would, wouldn't be natural. And the truth is, what it's done is exactly what Varanus molinas told me it would do. He would go up there, bask for less time, because the rock is heated. We'll talk about how it's heated in a second. And he's been spending more time playing in the cage. Lots of playing. And I have to call it playing. I know people will say they don't play. You know, their hunting skills, maybe they're working on something. But I want to believe that Q plays. And that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. So I put the rock up there. It's working. The rock's at 120. Q gets to 114, and he just takes off. And he uses every portion of this cage. Now, a lot of cages you'll see on good builders, people know what they're doing, probably use dome lights. I would have used dome lights, but I didn't have a lot of space on the top. and I didn't want to cut through the top of the melamine and create a screen area to shine down because I wanted to keep humidity. I had the radiant heat panels. I probably wouldn't have bought them originally, but I don't know if I'll use anything else now because it's keeping the humidity in well. The humidity is always at least 75 to 80%, and the rock is heated well. I also put a heat panel in the back. You can see the light on. I did that because I wanted to have the heat coming from underneath, and just like Varanus Molinas had mentioned to me about the rock, you know, it's going to heat them from the bottom and the top. Now the heat panel is heating the rock from the bottom. The radiant heat panel is heating him from the top, and it's really a nice combination. So I have to admit, I probably wouldn't have done it or wouldn't have thought it to begin with, but I had it, so I tried it. So I'll just take credit for being a genius, and the truth is I had it, so I used it. Lattice in the back, fluorescent lights. The covers have to come off, and I have ordered UVB lights, but I had to get them special because they're such a small size. These are just under cabinet lights. They're small, they're easy to install, and as long as I'm sending him a little bit of UVB, I've been giving him a totally great mix of different food items. So he's eating bone, he's eating shrimp shell, and a dusted vitamin D3 powder. That's the top, but I don't consider it the top of the cage because something has to run those items. So real quick, and I'm gonna finish up here because it's already long. I wouldn't have, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have set temperatures so high. This is on the night drop currently. It's coming down from the 110 degrees setting. I find that the 110 actually heats the rock to 114. So make sure you check your temperatures with some kind of temp gun, or just put a temperature gauge on top of it, you know, just a regular household one, and let it stay there. And make sure, just because this says 110, you never know where that probe's gonna be. And you never know how the airflow is gonna affect the probe. So just make sure you're always testing your temperatures, which I had to do several times because when I added the rock, I had it dialed in, and then when I added the rock, I had to change it. And just remember that, that's all. So this is a very, it's an expensive, I used to use it on an incubator. It's an expensive, I say expensive, but it has a nighttime drop, a daytime temperature, alarms, clocks. You don't necessarily need something fancy. I happen to have it, so I used it. The probe was right here, goes into the top, and then the herb plugs into the back, and then the heat panels plug into the herb on this cable right here. The fluorescent lights are just on a timer. The timer's off right now, but it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then the night drop is 7:30 to 7:30. I just did a half an hour change. I figure in the wild, when the sun comes up, it's still a little chilly in the morning, so I just did a half hour change. That's where I'm at. And again, for those of you who have actually stuck through the entire video, I apologize. I promised shorter videos. I'm gonna admit my mistakes. You're gonna see the solution happen. If it doesn't happen the next day, I'll make it happen as soon as possible. All mistakes will that could potentially harm Q will be fixed right away. But I think I've resolved all of those issues, and now they're just best practices. Will the aspen work? Yes. Is it what's best? No. So we're going to go to the soil, we're going to go to the sand, and I have a feeling varanusmolinas.com is going to be exactly right, and he's going to love it. So thanks everybody. I hope you enjoyed the cage tour. Grayson is feeling better, as you can see, and loving his puzzle. I'm sure you're all excited to see that. Have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you next time.